The show must go on. Oops. Mercury is in the Well, hello. Welcome back to the Perfectly Holistic Radio Show. My name is Pam Roussel, and I am so happy to be back with you guys tonight. We are going to be streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. For those of you guys watching on Instagram, just know that because of the streaming software that we're using, we can't see your comments. So if you want to drop comments, hop on over to our YouTube channel or Facebook page, and we can see all of your comments and interact. We have a really special guest today, and I am so excited. My friend Samantha Stupak is here with CBH Energetics and PetMedella, and she has an international bioenergetic testing company, and she transformed her own battle with chronic Lyme disease into a catalyst for healing and empowerment. And I am excited to talk with you, Samantha, and just thank you for joining me tonight. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Pam.
Awesome. Well, this is a first. We don't get to talk about bioresonance technology very much, and I think it's one of those up and coming technologies that I think people need to be looking out for, because this is the type of medicine of the future, in my opinion. What do you say?
I'm right there with you. I mean, it's I've been doing bioresonance now for 12 years. So back then it was much more taboo and people didn't know how it worked, but they knew it worked. And yeah, it saved my life. So of course it's my go-to at any type of ailment or any type of rash or like anything. It's my go-to. Yeah.
And it's amazing how accurate it is, because it basically looks at energy, frequency, vibration, what's resonating in the body, what's causing imbalance, where it's located, sources, root causes. It's fascinating. And there's all types of bioresonance type of, I don't want to say equipment, but technology. But yours is very, very cool. And you also make one for pets, which is so exciting and so unique. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about your origin story? Like, how did you get into this? How did you find bioresonance technology, and what happened?
Yeah, it's a similar story to a lot of people that are in the health and wellness arena, I think. I actually have an undergrad in packaging engineering. And so I was working as an engineer back in my early 20s and, you know, having a great life down in Chicago, and went on a cruise. I go on this cruise, I party, I drink, I stay up late, you know, all the things that we do to ourselves in our early 20s. And I came back and I was like, wow, I needed a vacation from my vacation, because I just felt run down. But then it kept lingering too long. After about a week or so, I was finally going to make an appointment with the doctor to find out what is wrong, because I keep getting what I felt like sicker and sicker, and was getting no answers. And over the course of a month, I went from, you know, being a healthy 20-some-year-old kid, really, to completely bedbound for 4 years. Bedbound. I cognitively started to lose my abilities a bit. Like some days where I was better, other days I couldn't even remember my own name. And I saw countless doctors all over the country, tons of different meds, and every test you can imagine under the sun, poked and prodded, and stayed for a month at one of the most reputable hospitals in the country, only to be told it was all in my head. Here's an antidepressant, you know, go home, good luck, kind of thing. So of course it was extremely frustrating not having the answers, because you go and you're like, just tell me something. Like, I don't care what it is, tell me something so it can give me something to work on. But that wasn't the case. luckily I found someone online that referred me to a doctor in Wisconsin that used some sort of testing, and I should go see him. So I got on a wait list and I got in, I got to see him, and he used technology similar to what we use here at CBH and PetMedella.
Mm-hmm.
And in that appointment, he was like, well, you've been bit by a tick. This is all tick-borne related.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, it's not Lyme. I've been tested countless times for Lyme, literally every time I went to the doctor for the past 4 years. And he's like, well, good luck. Nice to meet you. Here's your, $1,000 bill. And that was back then. It was really expensive. Right. And it was like that. Or, you could take this regimen, do these lifestyle hacks, follow this diet, and come back in a month and see me. So I did that. I was able to work with him for about 6 months before I was completely tapped out financially. But it was at that pivotal point where I am walking again. I am part of society again. And it was my decision at that time to either go back to school to, study bioenergetic medicine, or back to my career as an engineer. And it was just like, there was no question in my mind, because I knew I needed to help people that were suffering like I had suffered. So yeah, I started my practice in about 2012, and I worked similar to how he worked, one-on-one with people. And in a very short amount of time, I had a 3-month, I was booked 3 months with a wait list. Wow. And I was, seeing people 12 hours a day. I was burning myself out. I was like I wanted to help more and more people, but I also wasn't taking care of myself in the process. And so that's when I went back to the drawing boards, and with my engineering background, started to work with the equipment and the software and the technologies to be able to analyze hair and saliva. And so at that point, I was able to then create multiple systems, teach the technicians that work for us specifically how to test in the way that I was testing to get the results that I was getting in person. And so at that point, we were predominantly working on humans. Mm-hmm. And at that time, the little love of my life, Mila, she was half pit, half lab. And she started to, at the time, I think she was 8 or 9, she started to limp and was really fatigued. She stopped eating. And I was like, there has to be a way to help her. And so in working with her hair and saliva, PetMedella was born. Wow. And it's so interesting, because it's kind of like that whole concept of, you're so intertwined with your pets, because it's about 6 months for her as well. My healing journey really was about 6 months initially to get back on my feet. It was about the same for her. And she, for her to get back on her feet and really start thriving again. And, she was a 65-pound dog that lived almost 19 years old. And so, she was kind of the dog, the being that started PetMedella then. So at this point now, we've been rock and rolling since 2012, and we have 11 testing locations throughout the US. We test internationally, and we work with all sorts of pets, and then of course humans too. So it's been quite the journey.
That is amazing. Now, did he have the same tick-borne disease that you did? Or was it
Lila, she had, oh gosh, when it comes to tick-borne issues, it's like such a gamut, because these ticks are no longer just carrying Borrelia, which is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. They're carrying like they're sick ticks. So they have their parasites and bacterias and things like that, viruses that they pass along. So I don't recall exactly all of them that she resonated with. But my guess is it's a lot of the same, because when we see someone or an animal that resonates with a tick-borne bug, it's kind of like Pandora's box when it comes to tick-borne illnesses, because it's just like most ticks carry more than just Borrelia. So you usually get that soup du jour of different tick-borne illnesses. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it took about the same time, 6 months, to turn her around.
Yeah, which is fascinating. But what's interesting with animals? Mm-hmm. It doesn't usually take that long. And I usually see animals make a much faster comeback than that, in terms of, their remedies and their diets and things like that. In essence, I think back about that time, and she was one of my, first clients really, even though she was my dog, but it was just like learning which formulas are the most potent, which, which combinations work the best. And it's just like that trial and error in working with animals is much different than working with humans. I mean, it's the technology that we use is exactly the same, but it's having that practitioner mindset of like how to navigate the results for the most profound outcomes in terms of like a regimen, a diet, any kind of little lifestyle hacks.
Right. That's so amazing. And I find that it's probably also dependent on how sick they are, right? Because it does take time for the body to heal and rebalance itself. But again, if you're using the right tools, the body can do that quickly or
Yeah,
quicker than if you're just
absolutely.
doing hit and miss. And that's what I love about the stuff that you provide. So why don't we dive into some of the tests, the PetMedella test? We can talk about the human test too a little bit, because everybody listening to this um, can benefit from the hair and saliva test, whether they have a pet or whether they want to do it for themselves if they have chronic health issues. um, and here's something really, really cool, you guys. You don't have to live in the United States to participate in these testing, and this is why we wanted to talk about this on the radio show, because this show goes worldwide. So I wanted to share that because you can get a hair and saliva test done if you live in another part of the world. So don't let that stop you from exploring this technology, because it's fascinating and it can be really helpful. And we'll talk about how that can work later before we wrap up the show. How we can how people can who live in other countries can submit their information, their hair and saliva stuff to you guys. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a test kit itself, I actually grabbed one just in case anyone wanted to see it. This is a little PetMedella test kit, and the process is super simple. So you would order a test kit online, and then when you would receive this in the mail, there is a vial in here to swab, and it doesn't require a lot of saliva, but ideally, like probably before any meal times, and then just get it under the tongue, on the sides of the cheeks, and then simply pop the saliva or the vial back into the tube. And then we have in here as well a little instruction card, exactly how to register online and how to take the samples. And then we also have the baggie for hair and nails.
Nice.
So this part, there's a lot of animals that just don't have a lot of hair to spare. So we can use fingernail clippings as well. And you can do a combination of both right in this little bag. And then there's a prepaid envelope that you just drop the 2 samples and your ID card right back in the prepaid envelope in the mail. And when we receive it, we'll email and let everybody know that we received your samples. And then at that point, it's roughly about a week for us to turn the results around. And you'll get an email that says your results are ready on your dashboard. And then you simply log in and all the results are there. And we test so much. So we're testing the first part of the full scan, which is our most popular. We're looking at the entire body. So the importance of that is to see exactly where someone might be or where an animal might be holding stress in their body. And it's not just like if they're holding stress there, it's to what degree. So is it their liver? Is it their thyroid? Is it their heart? Because that gives us an idea of exactly like where the stress is and where we can work with them. But then the rest of the report is getting into the juice of it. Like, why is there stress there? That's really powerful. And so that's when we're looking at food and environmental sensitivities, which is fantastic because you can start pulling those foods from the diet. Or you find out like your cat is sensitive to hairspray and they're hanging out with you every morning when you're getting ready. I mean, that's an easy thing to remedy. And so you get that section. The next section is nutritional deficiencies. And so this is where we're looking at aminos and vitamins, minerals, fats. And then we list food sources that are potent in each of those nutrients. So in a perfect world, they're getting it from their whole foods.
Sweet.
And then the next section is the toxin section. One of my favorites. That's where we get into the parasites, the bacteria, the viruses, molds, the chemicals and metals. So we really test the whole gamut. And that's great because it helps you as an owner to understand potentially where your pet might be experiencing an exposure to mold I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've tested someone or an animal that has mold, and it sends them on a trajectory of exploring where are they exposed to it. Is it just from simply being outside, or are you living in a water damaged house? Because that, as you know, is pretty toxic on our bodies.
Yeah.
If it's like heavy metals, well, have you had your tap water checked? So it's helpful to just start to investigate clean living, not only for you, but for your pets as well. And then, of course, the viral components, the bacterial components, those are another level where that's where we can start working on remedies to clear those.
Mhm.
And the next section, we test hormones to identify any specific hormonal imbalances. And then last but not least is the balancing regimen. And this is great because it's like up until that last section, we're looking at everywhere there is stress in the body and potentially why they're resonating with stress in the body there. But then the regimen section gives you that how in terms of being able to clear that stress and clear that toxicity. And that could be anything from herbal formulas, supplements, homeopathic formulas, which animals do fantastic with homeopathy.
Mhm.
And so that's all listed right online, and you can book a consult if you'd like, or you can also just order your remedies right from the report as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to clarify. So when you guys get your report back, it's going to show you where all the imbalances are in like your root causes, and then it's going to give you suggestions for how to fix it. So there's homeopathy and a lot of combination remedies, and like you said, the herbs, the supplements, things like that. So they lay it out for you to make it very easy. So you know exactly what your pet needs, and they've tested these remedies. They're not just pulling them out of the air saying, oh, try this one, try this one. They want to see if it resonates. And that means, is there congruence? Does the body agree with this? Because if it doesn't, you're wasting your time and your money. So that's what's really cool, because it takes the guesswork out. Like you get this amazing report and you're like, okay, now what? I want to get my cat healthy again. And you lay it out very, very easily. And I love the fact that, if for someone who is not super confident on knowing how to get started, there is the option to book a consult with one of your practitioners over there to kind of walk through what all the results mean, and then kind of give you guidance on, okay, these are the supplements or these are the remedies, and this is why, and this is how you would do it. Because, sometimes it's not easy, even though when you work in it, we think it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's nice to have that consult with somebody who can just make it make sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it can be a lot of information, and it can be a little overwhelming if you've never experienced anything like this before, and the information that the body holds is quite impressive, and it's very mind-blowing to me. Like, oh my gosh, you got that out of my body or my pet's body. All that information is stored there. Yes, it's all about energy, it's all about frequencies, and that's what your technology does. It goes through and figures out where the frequencies are that are imbalanced in the body and what's causing those imbalances. And it's a fascinating tool. I love it.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. It's so beneficial for you. I mean, it will never replace traditional medicine, but it's giving people and pet owners another option and another avenue to look at health and wellness from an area where it hasn't really been explored in this specific space. I mean, energy medicine's been around thousands of years, of course, but like with this level of technology combined with it, we're able to get really specific and give you that visual. And energy is so profound, and it can shift so quickly when it's addressed in the correct way. And what's fascinating, even to my own experience with Lyme disease, I went 4 years,
Yeah.
4 years with doctors missing that I had Lyme, and it destroyed me. There's days I didn't think I was going to make it through. And, I literally said prayers not to wake up sometimes, because the quality of life was so bad that I didn't see light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And so then to see this doctor in Wisconsin that says this was from a tick bite and you're resonating with Borrelia burgdorferi, I mean, it was kind of disbelief because I was told I didn't have Lyme for 4 years and consistent testing for it. And then to make such a wild transformation in such a quick time frame, it tells you the power of energy and signatures that we're exposed to. So you're not finding Borrelia burgdorferi in my blood, but I can't get out of bed because I'm resonating with the signature of it. And if I can clear it, I'm better. Like it, to this day, it blows my mind. And it makes me so excited to be able to support and bring this technology to practitioners like yourself and clients and animals and people all over, because it's another way to achieve wellness where it might be missed otherwise. So
Right. And I think it's so cool what you said. Why do you think all of the blood tests that they did for 4 years never identified it? Or they looked, is it something that was they were trying to find something circulating in the blood and it wasn't in the blood?
correct. Yeah. And back then, I believe they were doing Western blots on me, which they don't test for all the bands of Borrelia. And Borrelia is a tricky organism. It's a corkscrew bacteria that can literally twist into any tissue in the body. That's why so many people with Lyme have these migrating symptoms where one day they can't talk, the next day they can't walk, the next day they have abdominal pain or joint pain. So it moves around, and that's why it's misdiagnosed so often and it goes so deep. And so with the bioresonance, it detects a resonance to the exposure of the energy of it, which our hair, our saliva, our body will hold. So I was really, really sick with it too. Like I can think back to my first tick bite. I was probably 7 years old. And then from then on, I was a kid up in Wisconsin. You pick ticks off like nothing. So I'm sure it was just resonating with me for a long time. And I party on that cruise, wear my immune system down, and it came out with a fury. So,
yeah. Wow. So I kind of liken the whole energy frequency resonance with like your body raising its little white flag. And so when you're looking for specific frequencies, it's like, yep, I'm here. It's like I'm over here and I'm over here, but I'm in the body.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It really is. And, we like from the toxin side, we test for thousands of toxins, and it's pretty fascinating seeing what we can pull on people. It's just like, whoa, where would you even been exposed to something like that in the energetic space? But then once we start addressing it with a remedy, it's wild how quickly some of these things can clear up.
Yeah.
We have one really cool story of this Chihuahua. So this Chihuahua was adopted from, I believe, a humane society and was very abused. And its mom was doing regular full scans on it pretty consistently, making so much progress, like just overall looking healthier, walking more easily. But then this is where it gets really interesting. So this dog had never sat down. From the level of trauma, the pet owner was just like, I don't know why. Either he would stand up or lay down, never sit down. And they ended up ordering an awareness scan from our CBH side, which is our more emotional test. And she runs it on her pup. And we make this infused remedy where it's a polycrest formula. And then we infuse what we find resonates with the person or pet. And it's very emotionally driven. So we're testing for emotional blocks and things like that. And so she orders the infusion for her Chihuahua. And literally, she said within like 3 doses, he sat for the first time ever.
Wow.
I mean, you think about energy at a level of, we're clearing things from that physical body in terms of being able to, have a shiny coat, have good bowel movements and be able to walk without pain. But then to address with an emotional formula and suddenly that dog is sitting down, like it just, to this day, it's always something that I love those kind of stories. And we hear those kind of stories frequently.
Yeah. And I work a lot with the emotional and emotional blocks and things like that in the body, and trapped emotions and trauma and things like that. It is fascinating what the body stores and holds on to.
Yes. Yeah.
It is. It is. It's it's such a it's a fascinating world. It's mind blowing. It
Yeah.
really is. You know.
Yes. Yes.
Um, do you also test for like vaccinosis and things like that specifically?
We'll test for resonating vaccine toxicity, and then we'll also pull things that might be incorporated in it. So
Mhm.
whether it is heavy metals or certain chemicals, maybe some of the actual virus or bacteria as well. And then we do test for specific formulas that are curated directly for like a vaccine injury or something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I see that as one of the biggest, most common problems today in the veterinary space.
Right.
And just the pet space in general is over vaccination and vaccinosis. It's just, it's just crazy. And it's so sad because these poor pets don't really have a voice, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the parents can feel very pressured, in
Mhm.
a lot of cases to keep doing this, even though something inside them says that's not really in my pet's highest and best good. So it's cool that you are able to pick those kinds of things up as well.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah. We look at that, and one of the big common themes we see with pets as well is so much pesticide and herbicide toxicity,
mhm.
so many sensitivities to lawn chemicals and molds and things like that. But you think about these animals, I mean, they're low to the ground and walk
Yeah,
around outside so much, and so many people spray, and on our food supply. And even if you don't spray, your neighbor might and
yeah,
your town might. So that's one of the big common things we see with a lot of pets. And you said it earlier, the voice our pets don't have. And sometimes when I look at like especially a full scan from
mhm,
an animal, it's kind of like, to me, when I look at it, I can almost be like, oh my gosh, this poor cat or this poor dog, like they are in pain in these areas, because you can see that level of weakness or acute stress. And it's nice to see that, because you suddenly understand your pet better and be able to work with them more. And so it's kind of one of those things where you're able just to work with them in a more clear space and understand them more, and help prevent to
yeah,
things like pesticides and your food supply to them, to clean those areas up.
yeah. I think that's a good point because so many times we don't see it because it's not visible to us, right?
Mhm.
So, but the body tells you what's present and what's not present because of the frequencies and the energy. It's all about the energy. So, even though you think your pet may not be exposed to certain things, the body knows differently. And, it is toxins and chemical exposure is a real thing.
Mhm.
We live in a toxic world, and it may be coming from the food, it may be coming from the environment, it can be coming from stuff that they put in their body. It's just all these different ways that pets can be exposed to things that we don't really give a second thought to sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's just normal to spray your yard for weeds.
Yeah,
It's not normal, because guess what? Those chemicals are going to latch onto your nerve endings, settle in your endocrine glands, and now suddenly you have a dog or a cat that's confused because they have such intense chemical toxicity.
mhm,
And it's something so many people just don't think about.
right.
Mhm.
That's so true. That's so true. So how would somebody who lives in another country, do they have to order a scan first to be shipped to them, or how does that work?
It depends. We do ship test kits into certain countries,
Mhm.
and that's no problem. They just order right online. But there's some countries we cannot ship into, and so they could just reach out to us at info@cbhenergetics.com for themselves, or if they're looking at testing their pets, it's
Yeah.
info@petmedella.com, and just request an invoice, and then we'll send specific instructions on how to collect the samples using supplies from home.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So no excuses, you guys.
Yeah.
No excuses. You can do this no matter where you live in the world, which is cool. Um, so yeah, do you have any other amazing stories to share?
Oh gosh, so many. Let's see. We have a golden retriever who was having seizures like 4 times a day, and this I don't recall all the specifics in his report on what came up, but I know the mom had tested him a couple times, but he got to the point seizure free after his last set of remedies. So I mean that's pretty remarkable from going on a daily phenobarbital to taking remedies to clear things to not needing phenobarbital again. I
Right.
mean that's incredible.
It is incredible. Yes, and I know so many pet parents don't want their pets on medication.
Mhm.
How do you work with those pet parents in like help? Is there a way to work with them? Well, do they still take their medications while they go through all this detox? Like how
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
do you get off of them? Because I have people ask me, it's like, how will I know when I can get off? Can I get off this medication? And so I'm not a vet, so I can't answer. And I tell them I can't. I will never tell you to stop taking medication.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. And we would never tell anyone to stop a medication and not even to take the samples because we always try to have people avoid any non-essential supplements and things like that, but always continue any prescribed medications. But as long as that's put in the health questionnaire, we like to know it because that final regimen in the end of each report, we want to make sure there's no cross indications of a medication and a supplement.
Right.
And so we will say always make sure to work closely with your veterinarian that's prescribing these, because as the body starts to balance, the body is going to start working a lot more optimally. And if suddenly you're on a medication or your animal's on a medication where you might not be needing it, you want to monitor that and make sure the veterinarian is aware that, hey, we've really been working on some holistic things. Can you check X, Y, and Z to see if they still need this medication?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really important.
Yes, exactly. But I love to give people hope because in some cases, like if they are on gabapentin, for example, or some kind of anti-seizure meds, the body, when it clears out the toxins and the root cause, the body's not going to need that kind of support at some point. It's just, and I tell people, I said, you will know, because a lot of times pets are really smart. And when they don't need something anymore, they start refusing to take it. Like they fight, it's like they're trying to say, I don't need that anymore. Look at me, I'm good. I'm good. You don't need to keep giving that to me. So I have found that to be the case a lot, in my history. So
Oh, for sure.
Your pet trying to tell you is like, no, we're good. I don't need that anymore. So check with your vet and see if you can start to take them off,
Yeah, we see it all the time. We see it all the time with both pets and people needing that they're going to their doctor and they're needing to come off of it per their doctor's orders. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It is. It is. It's so cool. Any other cool stories you want to share?
I wanted to make a comment on how you're talking about our animals know intuitively when they are done with something. And so I have a yellow lab and he's 11 years old. He is just a little cutie pie. When I'm taking my supplements and my remedies in the morning, he literally will come over and wait for his, and I give him his. And I know when he's done, to your point, he intuitively knows when he's done with a regimen, he stops coming over. And it's like, oh, interesting. He'll maybe threw half of a bottle of something, but he intuitively knew he was done. So that's something great to keep an eye on too with your pets when you're doing a regimen like this. Cause I think we always tell people continue on a regimen until it's gone. But there's times to that point, sometimes they will know they're done, or there's also times where maybe it's kind of like you can see that their body has taken all that they need of it. And then you can stop and you can retest to see if they in fact for example, cleared the parasite and they don't need that parasite formula anymore, or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Again, if you're watching on Instagram, we can't see your comments, but if you're on YouTube or Facebook, if you have specific questions, go ahead and drop them down and we'll be sure to answer those. So if someone has never done bioresonance testing, do you ever get people say, oh, that's really woo-woo and it's not based in science? What would you say?
I would just say, look at our testimonies. You know, some people will ask for all the peer-reviewed studies on bioresonance and X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, we haven't done any. We haven't needed to. You know, the proof is in the pudding. And if someone is reluctant to test, it's just one of those things where maybe it's not the time for them, you know, and but at the same time, I feel like when I first started in business and I was working with people, I was getting a lot of people that were coming and people that were bringing their pets for testing that I was kind of like their last ditch effort after like kind of going through the gamut like I had gone through.
Yep.
And it was pretty neat watching the transition over a couple of years where suddenly that wasn't the case anymore. It was people coming when they had just a little complaint of X, Y, or Z, like maybe some bloating, or, you know, maybe their dog had just a little hot spot, or like nothing catastrophic, like where I had originally started. And I think the proof in that pudding is right there. Like people are coming to us more as for support first versus going to their doctor. I mean, there's definitely times and places where it's like, no, you should go to your doctor first, but they've become ingrained into starting here. And then interestingly, like their doctor becomes last ditch effort. And we're not promoting that, but it's just interesting to see that transition over over decade. So
yeah. And I think it's just a good reminder to tell people that everything at the most basic level is all about energy. So, and so it's shifting our perspective and not looking at something from the touch and feel tangible, you know, science, whatever, even though energy work is so scientific. I mean, it's all rooted in science. I'm not a scientist, so I don't have all of the lingo and the terminology to be able to explain all of that on a deep level. But everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And so the body emits all of these frequencies, and it's just a cool perspective. Like I call this an energetic perspective. It's not a diagnosis. It's not a, you know, it's not the same as running a blood test. And in some cases, like you experienced, blood tests don't cut it. They miss stuff, you know, and they're not finding stuff unless it's circulating in the blood. But those frequencies are still present. And so I love how, you know, for me, I would always, because I'm just who I am, I go to the holistic stuff and the energy stuff first, because it can actually detect things before there's an actual problem. You know, because you start to find those frequencies resonating when there's an imbalance, that it doesn't always show up on a blood test or whatever. So that's cool. It's just a cool way to nip things in the bud quickly and find out, hey, there's something off. You know, what can we do to fix it? Where's the root cause? Like, why is this happening? And again, it's all about the energy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for those that are very scientific, it's just like you start looking at other types of like actual medical equipment, like an MRI or an X-ray. I mean, in reality, those are forms of energetic tests. I mean, it's an electric test, and this is that. It's just in a different means. You know, we test in hertz. So when we're putting the hair and saliva into our equipment and testing in a hertz measurement, it's all very physics. You know, everything is falling within a norm of 49 and 59 hertz. And if you fall outside those parameters on either side, that's going to be represent acute stress, which is going to be more inflammatory. It's going to be hot. It's going to be irritated. Or on the flip side, you drop lower to like 30 hertz. That's weak, like a lot of weakness, where it's kind of like the body was telling you for a long time, something's going on. It's hot. I'm telling you to do something about it. And when you don't do anything about it for a long time, it becomes weak. And when it becomes weak, that's typically where people are starting to potentially, if they're going to the medical doctor and getting diagnoses, you know, you can catch it in that, you know, mild inflammatory space and find out that your thyroid has some, you know, resonating heavy metal toxicity. Well, let's clear that out so we can get back into balance and get it back into the 50 hertz arena. So it is very scientific. I could nerd out on that all day.
No, me too. It's just really cool. And I like to have the energetic perspective of things because it's just looking at things differently, you know, and you're going to get different. Sometimes there's a crossover, but sometimes you get different information that's not going to come up on the other stuff. So it's really nice. Yeah.
And sometimes it's the best of both worlds, you know?
Yeah. And you could partner with doing all the other diagnostics and then take something like this and it's just going to give you more information.
Absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your back to school special. Before we wrap this up, this is really cool. So I didn't plan this ahead of time and I had no idea this was happening, but you guys are really fortunate because if you're watching this today, you have one more day to take advantage of some amazing savings. So Samantha, why don't you tell people what they can get?
Yeah. So our back to school sale goes until tomorrow night, the 20th at midnight Central Time. And for our pet tests on the full scan, it's with your code, it would be $50 off. And can you remind me what's your code again?
It's Purrrfectly Holistic.
Purrrfectly Holistic. That's right. Yeah. So $50 off a full scan from PetMedella. And then the CBH test, which is this one, this is what the CBH one looks like. The full scan for it with your code is $70 off a full scan. So it's a really rare sale that we don't do often. We also have a smaller scan, a balancing scan. And we're doing a deal on that one. If you buy 3 balancing scans with your code, it's $20 off each. And then they'd get a free remedy scan with that as well. And that goes until tomorrow as well.
That's awesome. Yes. And I dropped the links over here in the comments, you guys, so you can go straight to the testing kits in our store if you wanted to look at that a little bit more. Yeah, take advantage of this opportunity because like you said, it doesn't come around very often and it's really cool and you're going to save a lot of money. So yeah, well, Samantha, thank you so much for being here today. It's been such a pleasure.
Yes. Thanks for having me on. I love chatting with you.
Yeah. Is there any final thoughts that you want to leave people with?
Gosh, I mean, just, you know, be proactive. Don't wait until things are bothering you to a point where it's hard to come back from it. You know, be proactive and clear out any kind of energetic blocks right away because it makes life a lot easier and healthier and happier.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is a wrap, you guys. I don't see any questions, so we will just close it out. Again, you can go to shop.purrrfectly and just look under products and you'll find testing kits. And again, the link is over here and the sale ends tomorrow night at midnight. So jump on that while you can. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll be looking for those over the next couple of days. And Samantha, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And all you international people, take advantage of this as well.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye, you guys.